Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today?
April. Bouncy Castle. It was April, and the pigeon brought the ants a parcel.
Who sent it?
The children asked.
My friends, the red ants, sent it from the forest next door,
the queen ant explained. They opened the sizable parcel to reveal a bouncy castle.
Hooray! Let's blow it up!
The little ants cheered, and they all started to pump the colourful contraption. The castle soon grew to its full size. The queen ant asked Dr. Owl to call everyone to the meadow.
Hey everyone, come and jump. Come to the ant castle,
Dr. Owl shouted. No one wanted to miss the chance to bounce on the castle. The only one to miss out was the snail boy, who had gone to visit Snail Sam. Soon after that, the sky darkened and a storm began. The little beetles all ran into the ants' house. Then the rain turned to hailstones, and all the little pieces of ice punched holes in the bouncy castle. By the time the storm had passed, the bouncy castle was as flat as a pancake. Just then Berry arrived home. By now it was too late for him to try the bouncy castle because it had completely deflated and lay flat on the top of the hill.
I miss the bouncy castle,
Berry said with a sob.
Don't be sad. We'll stick it and blow it up again,
Dolly reassured the snail boy. Berry did not say a single word, but just set off home with his head hung low. Then he got straight into a hot bath to warm himself. He got his bath toys out, but even his favourite whale could not cheer him up. The others all thought hard how they could make Berry happy again.
We could make our own bouncy castle and put mattresses on top of each other,
the bee suggested.
That won't work. They'll all slide apart and we'll all fall off,
Stanley sulked.
We could stretch a sheet between the trees like we did when the kite escaped,
said Flutter.
Not bad, but we've done that before. Anyone got a new idea?
Dolly asked.
I have,
shouted Bubble.
Once, when Dolly's flowers dried out, I asked a friendly cloud to make some rain. Maybe this time I could ask it to let Berry jump on it for a little while.
But Berry can't fly. How will he get up on a cloud?
Balthazar puzzled.
We'll take him up,
said Dolly. And so Bubble flew up to the largest cloud and discussed the plan with it. Meanwhile, the friends all hurried to Berry's house.
We're going to take you bouncing,
Flutter told the snail boy.
Just hold on tight,
said Dolly. And they picked him up and flew up high in the sky. The cloud happily let Berry bounce about on it and then waved to Dolly when it had had enough.
I think that will do for now.
The little friends thanked it for helping out and then flew Berry back down to the ground again.
That was really super, thank you,
Berry said with a grin, and he hugged his pals. It took the ants several days to mend all the holes, but they eventually finished. And this time, Berry did not miss the chance to have fun with the others.
Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today?
The Windmill. One summer day, Berry and Dolly were playing badminton by the windmill. All of a sudden, they heard the sound of sobbing. "It's coming from the windmill," the snail boy said. They set off in the direction of the sound and soon arrived at the windmill. There they found the mill beetle sitting sobbing on the ground. "Why are you crying?" they asked him. "The storm damaged the mill sails. They're ruined and I can't mend them," the mill beetle complained. "Let's call the others here. Stanley's got a saw, Balthazar's got a hammer, and I'm sure we can all fix it together," Dolly proposed. "All right," the mill beetle sniffed. The ladybird girl flew off right away to tell her friends. Very soon, Stanley, Balthazar, Zephyr, Eddie, Bubble and Morris arrived. They all got hard to work fixing the broken sails. They worked hard for 2 long days and were eventually done by the end of the second day. "Hooray! Just like new!" the mill beetle cheered. "I'll start the mill going again tomorrow and I'll make flour and bake fresh bread for you all." But the next day did not begin well at all. The wind had no intention of blowing, and the sails of a windmill cannot go round without wind. The mill beetle started to cry again. "All right, OK, please don't cry. We'll push it a little and maybe a breeze will blow up," Stanley suggested, and all the others agreed. 7 of them pushed the 6 sails. Stanley, Balthazar, Bubble, Berry, Eddie, Zephyr and Morris. They pushed it around and around, but they soon got tired. "There's never going to be any bread," the mill beetle moaned. "I'll go and tell the wind to blow," Zephyr announced as she flew high up into the sky. She spoke politely to the wind. "Dear wind, please blow for us a bit, because the windmill sails won't go round and it's making the mill beetle cry." This surprised the wind, and he muttered something to himself before flying lazily downwards. He took a deep breath and began to blow the windmill's sails. The mill started to move and work once more. The mill beetle filled the hopper and the millstones ground the wheat into the finest flour. The white flour began to form an impressive heap. The windmill sails went around and around and did not stop until the grasshopper girl signalled to the wind. "Thank you, that was just enough," she said with a grateful smile, and the wind flew back up into the sky. When the flour was ready, the mill beetle began to prepare the bread dough. He put the loaf into the oven and waited patiently for it to bake. When it was golden brown all over, he took it out and cut it into thick slices. They spread the bread with butter and jam and feasted until every last crumb had been gobbled up.
Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today?
The football match. One morning, Stanley was woken by the sound of someone knocking on his door. "Stanley, it's me, Frank." The little stag beetle crawled out of his bed and saw Frank the longhorn beetle. "Hello there, Frank, it's super to see you," Stanley said, and the old pals hugged. "I brought this for you." "A football, hooray!"
promised to play a proper game, Frank reminded him.
Then we'll tell the others to come and we'll have proper teams,
the stag beetle suggested. The two boys called on all the others to come and play football with them. They visited every house, and by the time they had reached the edge of the forest, they had 2 teams. Alfonso agreed to be the referee. We should sew them football shirts, Rosita suggested. One team can play in blue and one team can play in red. The footballers spent the whole week training. We sewed these for you, Zephyr told them, and she handed the red and blue shirts to Stanley.
Thank you,
the 2 teams said together, and they slipped on their new football shirts. Dolly and Rosita set benches up, and the spectators all sat at the side of the pitch. Alfonso blew his referee's whistle, and the match began.
That's it, run, Bubble,
Stanley yelled. Here, pass it to me, Bubble shouted. Hooray! The blue team cheered as they all embraced. Come on, Reds! Come on, Blues! The crowd cheered. That's not fair, Frank. You can't touch the ball with your hand, the b-boy complained.
Balthazar's right. Don't do it again, Frank. It's against the rules,
the referee said. The match got very exciting. The Blues were leading 3-2 when the game stopped again. Frank tripped me up, Bubble complained.
Yes, I saw that too, Alfonso agreed. I'll have to send you off if you break the rules again, Frank.
Stanley's team looked set to win. Frank started to get crosser and crosser. I'm going to score a goal now, he shouted, and he pushed Berry so hard that they ended up falling over and Frank shouted out in pain. Ouch! My arm! The others all ran over. I'll run and fetch Dr. Owl, Zephyr announced.
If you hadn't hurt yourself so badly, I'd send you off,
Alfonso said. Yes, I know, Frank said sadly, but my hand really hurts. Dr. Owl was soon at the scene.
Well, you've broken your arm. I'll have to put it in plaster, and you'll have to keep it on for 4 weeks. You'll need to look after it and no running around.
The blue team won the football match.
We'll have to wait a while before we can play again,
Stanley said, and he patted Frank on the back.
Don't be sad. You'll soon be as fit as a fiddle again.
I'm sorry that I broke the rules, Frank sniffed. I promise to play fairly when my arm has mended, and we can have another good game of football. I think we should all decorate Frank's plaster cast, Dolly said with a grin. Let's go back to my house for a snack. The big crowd of friends all piled into Dolly's spotty house. They got her crayons out and drew all kinds of funny things on the longhorn beetle's plaster. I'm going to keep it as a souvenir after Dr. Owl takes it off, Frank told them all. Then all the friends sat around the table and ate every last piece of the delicious sponge roll. Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today? Spring Sports Day. Berry, Dolly, Flutter and Balthazar were sitting by the lake, throwing pebbles into the water. Berry hit a floating log a couple of times, and his friends clapped.
Come down to the meadow now. The Spring Sports Day is about to start,
Stanley told them all. Their forest friends had already gathered in the meadow. The little beetles all put their running shorts on and stood in line. They all ran as fast as they could. They had to run 3 times around the meadow.
It's not fair. Eddie cheated. He cut the corner,
Leapy the grasshopper shouted.
There's to be no cheating. Let's start the competition again, but no cheating.
Stanley came first, Leapy came second, and Balthazar came third.
Berry finished last. Balthazar and Eddie started whispering.
He's as slow as his snail.
Don't make fun of him. It's not nice, Dolly said angrily. Now it's time for the high jump. The one who can pick the highest apple is the winner, Alfonso said. The friends took a run and tried to jump as high as possible. Leapy got the highest apple, Flutter got the second one, and Eddie the potato beetle grabbed the third apple. No matter how hard Berry tried, he couldn't even reach the lowest apple. I can't do it. I just can't do it, he sulked. Come on, Berry. You'll be better at the next race. Don't be sad, Rosita said. But Berry was too nervous to join the rolling race because he was frightened he'd crack his shell. The others all lined up and rolled from one end of the meadow to the other. Dolly was the fastest and she won. Now let's start flying, Alfonso said. The fastest to fly to the top of this tree and get a pine cone from there is the winner. The beetles started immediately. Flutter, Balthazar, Dolly and Zephyr all joined the race. Flutter was the fastest and got to the top of the tree first. I can't fly either, Berry snivelled. Don't be so angry, Berry. It's time for the skipping competition now. The fastest skipper wins. The 4 contestants started skipping. But suddenly, Berry got tangled in the rope and hurt himself. The others were worried and ran over to him. I'm not doing any more silly races. I can't do anything. I'm going home. We have to think of something. We have to cheer Berry up, Dolly said. You're right. What's he really good at? Rosita asked. I know, Flutter shouted. Throwing!
That's a super idea,
Balthazar agreed.
Berry was the only one who could hit the log in the lake.
They made 5 piles. The first one was made out of apples, the second of horse chestnuts, the third of pine cones, the fourth out of hazelnuts, and the 5th one out of pears. Dolly convinced Berry to come back to the meadow. It's time for the throwing competition. Do you want to join in? Rosita asked. Hooray! Throwing? Of course I'm in. Everybody had a go, but Berry was the best. He was the only one who managed to knock over all 5 piles. You see, Berry, I'm the best runner. Leapy's the best high jumper. Flutter's the best at flying. Dolly at rolling. Rosita can skip the fastest. And you're the best thrower. Everybody's good at something, Stanley explained. Berry got a beautiful shiny chestnut engraved by Alfonso, which said, throwing, first place. Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today? Witches. It was a warm summer day and Berry, Dolly and their friends were talking about witches.
Do you really think witches exist?
Balthazar the bee asked.
And they fly around on broomsticks at night? I'm not sure,
Berry mumbled. Then Berry and Dolly decided to walk home. Why don't we come back here later? We might see some witches, the ladybird suggested. They packed themselves a tasty picnic and went back to the meadow. They stared at the sky for a long time, but nothing happened. Come on, Dolly, let's go home. I don't think witches are real. Dolly stopped and stared. Berry, I just heard a strange noise from behind that tree. Oh, Berry, the leaves are moving. The 2 friends hugged each other in fright. A witch suddenly flew out and Berry and Dolly screamed. Then another witch appeared in the sky. Run, Berry, run and hide. And they ran as fast as they could. The two of them hid behind a bush. Oh, Dolly, it's too bad our friends aren't here with us. Just then the two witches landed, took off their capes and hats, and turned to smile.
But your friends are here.
It was us, Flutter and Balthazar. This made Dolly very mad. Really? You were the witches? It was very mean of you to scare us like that.
It was only meant to be a joke,
Balthazar explained. Berry was angry too. It was a very bad joke. You'll be sorry you did this. And the two friends stomped off home. We should play a joke on them now, Berry.
Do you think we should scare them too?
That's it, Dolly exclaimed. I've got an idea. Flutter and Balthazar were left standing in the meadow.
What should we do now?
They felt a bit ashamed. Maybe it wasn't such a good idea after all. Berry and Dolly ran to the ladybird's house and dressed up as little devils. They put black clothes on with black hats and added red horns to make themselves look like real devils.
Hurry, Dolly!
Berry was impatient. I can see them coming. They quickly jumped behind a bush and waited for Flutter and Balthazar to get close. Then they jumped out and scared the living daylights out of their friends. Help!
Devils!
The butterfly and the bee screamed.
Now do you see how bad it is when someone scares you?
The little snail said.
What? Is that you, Berry? That was a really nasty thing to do.
Nasty thing? Your witches were much scarier, Berry shouted. That's not true. The devils were scarier. That's enough, Dolly told them off. Stop this silly arguing. Let's be friends. We promise never to do it again. But you have to promise not to scare us either. You're right, the others nodded. Do you want to try the devil's hats on? Dolly asked.
Yes, please. You can try our witches' hats on if you like and sit on our broomsticks.
Whippy! This is super! Berry whooped. We're flying just like witches.
Yes,
Balthazar agreed.
like real witches.